Almost 6 weeks and Iran and the U.S. and Israel agreed to a 2-week ceasefire just 90 minutes before the deadline that President Trump gave to open the Strait of Hormuz. But is the war likely to end, and what will happen when we have upcoming talks this weekend? What will they focus on to keep this pause in place and maybe even longer? We're bringing back retired Marine Colonel Brian Kennedy to 21 News at 5. Brian, thank you for being here. Yeah,
Hi, Lindsay.
You've done 2 tours in Iraq. You have extensive knowledge and education and experience when it comes to strategic foreign policy with the U.S. Army. So you've looked at kind of the strategies that have gone into these wars, and then you've been on the ground as well, literally serving our country. So thank you for your service. The U.S. is declaring our intervention in Iran a victory, and I'm wondering what has to happen to find a resolution here, and what would Iran and the U.S. look to achieve in their upcoming talks this weekend?
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the very basics. First and foremost, this was a war of choice. We were prodded into it by the nation of Israel. Israel wanted to prosecute this war after their own 9/11, October of, I believe it was 2024, when they had their attacks come out of the Gaza Strip. They wanted to prosecute a wider war against Iran and their proxies. They started with the proxies, and they wanted to go after the Islamic Republic of Iran. They presented this to the United States in February, and the United States said, okay, sure, we'll go along with you. And during that time, we had some senior leadership in the United States military that dissented and disagreed with it. And you saw Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth fire some of these service chiefs and heads because they did not provide a path for the president to get to, yes, we will do this. So there is a lot of really flawed strategic and operational planning that goes into that. However, the choice was made to attack Iran preemptively for reasons that are still not yet quite clear. So once we get to this ceasefire, remember, leading up to the ultimatum last night where a civilization was going to be wiped out forever, which implies more specifically the threat of nuclear war. That's the closest that we've ever been to that level of warfare and that level of violence, probably in 60 plus years. So what does one do to make peace after a threat like that is made? The ceasefire has already been broken. Israel's attacking heavily into Lebanon. Israel says that Lebanon was not part of the Pakistani brokered peace deal, or correction, ceasefire deal between the two warring factions. And Iran says that the Strait of Hormuz has not yet been authorized to be fully open. So the strait is trickling through commercial traffic.
I want to jump in here. NBC is reporting that traffic was halted again today. It's just not moving well. So what does that mean for folks at home watching? I mean, does it take a few days for that to get back to what would be a normal pace?
Well, I've sailed through that strait many times. The real problem is it's small. There's no real consideration with depth, but the Iranians are always very, very tempting as you go through. They swarm you with small boats. They have guns and missiles and other things. And this swarming tactic that they use it with small boats, they use it with drones, they use it with lots of other things. Now, I always sailed through on a warship. If you go through in commercial traffic, your government directs what a warship does. Your insurance company directs what commercial traffic does. So one of the major underwriters for commercial shipping traffic, Lloyd's of London, or whoever underwrites the insurance for these large billion-dollar vessels and their billions of dollars worth of cargo, they are the ones that will stipulate when it's safe or when they perceive the risk is low enough for that major capital ship to go through that contentious waterway.
And real quick before we go, if the talks don't work out, the ceasefire just doesn't end up working out, do you think that we could see power plants, bridges attacked on our end toward them, or do you think that we could see other types of war weapons, nuclear weapons, brought in the mix within this conflict?
If nuclear weapons ever make it beyond the planning table, there's a real failure in leadership. We need to make sure that the most senior leaders that are sitting either on the National Security Council, service chiefs or higher, make sure that never gets out to the field and the operational execution of people that either drop or launch those types of weapons. But anything else, if it's a valid legal target, I could see us attacking valid and legal targets. Once you get to things like desalination plants, treatment plants, electrical grids, bridges, and things like that, those have to be vetted on an individual basis to make sure that there's a valid military reason to take out those targets. And right now, I don't see that wide-scale level of conflict being necessary.
All right, let's see what happens next. It's an evolving story. And Brian, thank you so much for joining us right here to explain.
Thanks, Lindsay.